Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Scholar. This is your quiet place, a space where science and story drift together like moonlight on water. As you settle in, let the day soften at the edges. You are here to listen, to rest, to wander gently into the landscapes of thought. You step softly into the hush of the forest. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of moss and the sweetness of leaves. Around you, trees stand still as if frozen in time, their shadows stretching long and gentle across the earth. They appear silent, but as you pause, you begin to sense that silence does not mean absence of sound. It means a different kind of voice, one not heard with ears alone. You walk closer to one tree, its trunk broad, its bark textured like the lines of an old story written in rough strokes. You place your hand upon it, and though the surface is coarse and unmoving, you feel something beneath, something steady, something alive. Beneath this bark, hidden from sight, a quiet river flows. Inside the tree, sap rises and falls. It moves slowly, like breath stretched over hours. The sap is not just liquid, but a carrier of whispers, carrying sugars born from sunlight, carrying minerals pulled from the soil, carrying messages written in chemistry. Every leaf and root is connected by this stream, a network of life running under the skin. You imagine it as a pulse, like the gentle rhythm of a heartbeat, though slower, more patient. Where your own heart beats more than 60 times each minute, a tree's flow moves in hours, sometimes in days. Yet it is a heartbeat all the same, the heartbeat of a being that measures time differently than you. Scientists call this system the vascular tissue. The xylem carries water upward from the roots, climbing through capillaries no wider than threads, yet strong enough to lift liquid to heights taller than houses. The phloem, in return, carries sugars downward, feeding roots, nourishing hidden parts that never see the sun. Two streams, flowing in opposite directions, balance the life of the tree. To you, this is no dry explanation, but a gentle story of balance. Water moves upward, sugar moves downward. Root and leaf exchange what they each cannot make alone. They are partners in silence, offering gifts through the hidden pathways beneath the bark. You lean closer and think of your own body. Your veins and arteries mirror this same design. Blood carries oxygen upward, nutrients downward, completing circuits of life. You are not so different from the tree you touch. Both of you carry rivers within your skin. Both of you depend on flows too small to see, yet too essential to ignore. The more you imagine, the more you realize the tree is speaking. Not in words, not in sound, but in rhythms. Its pulse is a language of patience. While you rush, the tree lingers. While you count minutes, the tree counts seasons. Its communication is not lost to you. It is only slower, stretched like a song played in long, quiet notes. You sit at its roots, feeling the coolness of the earth. Somewhere far below, water gathers, absorbed by root hairs thinner than a strand of hair. These roots do not drink greedily, but sip steadily, guided by gradients of need. Each drop is pulled upward, passing cell to cell until it reaches the trunk and joins the steady climb. This climb, against gravity, is one of nature's quiet marvels. The tree does not strain, does not pump with force, yet still the water rises. Cohesion, adhesion, and evaporation, the invisible forces of physics, work together, lifting water higher than your eyes can follow. You breathe deeply, picturing it. water molecules clinging to each other, climbing as though holding hands. The leaves above, in sunlight, releasing tiny drops of vapor, pulling the chain higher with every breath. It is a ladder built from nothing more than connection. And so the sap flows, pulled not by urgency, but by unity. As you imagine this, a calmness fills you. You see that even the simplest acts of a tree are not solitary. The root depends on the leaf depends on the root. The sap carries the messages between them. Together, they are a circle, always giving, always receiving. You rest in this thought. In your own life, too, you depend on unseen flows. The air you breathe comes from forests like this. The food you eat grows from soil fed by roots like these. You are woven into their quiet pulse, even if you forget. The forest around you deepens in stillness. Each tree stands in quiet dignity, yet you know that beneath their bark, rivers flow. Some carry water freshly gathered, some carry sugars from leaves, some carry signals of stress or growth. Each one is alive with motion, hidden in stillness. The pulse beneath the bark is not hurried. It does not race, it waits, it endures, it continues. And as you listen, you begin to feel your own body slowing to match it. Your breath becomes deeper, slower. Your mind, too, softens. You let go of the rush of your day and enter the longer rhythm of the tree. You think of the years it has stood here, listening to storms, basking in summers, bending in winters. Through all of it, its pulse continued, carrying whispers from root to leaf, from leaf to root. A tree is not just wood and leaf, not just trunk and bark. It is a flow, a movement, a quiet conversation written in sap. You imagine what it might be saying. Perhaps the leaf whispers, "Here is sugar, made from sunlight." The root replies, "Here is water, drawn from stone." They exchange gifts in endless patience, never rushing, never complaining. This is their language, a quiet barter of life. Your eyes grow heavy, your mind sinking deeper into this rhythm. The bark beneath your hand feels warmer now, alive with motion too subtle to measure. You no longer see the tree as silent. You see it as filled with voices, each drop of sap, another syllable in an endless conversation. The forest is no longer just a collection of trunks, but a chorus of pulses, each tree speaking in flows of water, sugars, and signals. You are surrounded by a slow, living dialogue. And as you listen, you wonder, if beneath the bark flows such a quiet pulse, what might flow beneath the soil, where roots stretch further than your eyes can follow? Beneath your feet, hidden in the quiet soil, lies a world you rarely see. You stand on the forest floor, feeling its firmness, yet just beneath is a living map, roots spreading outward, downward, twisting and turning, reaching in patient silence. They are the unseen half of the tree, the half that does not rise toward the sky, but instead sinks toward the depths. Roots are often imagined as anchors, holding the tree steady, keeping it upright against storms and winds. And yes, they are anchors, but they are far more than that. They are explorers, wanderers, and listeners. They stretch out like fingers, sensing the invisible. If you could follow them, crawling down through the earth, you would see how they branch into smaller and smaller threads. Some are as thick as your arm, others finer than a strand of hair. These root hairs form a veil, an almost invisible fuzz that multiplies the tree's touch with the soil. Each tiny hair increases the surface, allowing the tree to sip more water, gather more minerals, to listen more closely. You pause to consider how they move. Roots do not rush. They do not dart or leap. They grow slowly, sensing the world with their tips. The tip of a root is a sensitive zone, capable of detecting moisture, chemicals, even obstacles in its path. When scientists study them, they find that roots seem to navigate the soil almost as if they have a kind of decision-making ability. Not thought as you know it, but a different intelligence, an intelligence of direction, of sensing, of choosing the path most nourishing. Imagine rain falling above, seeping through the ground. Roots feel the faint trace of water moving, and they stretch toward it, not blindly, but with purpose. The soil holds maps of dampness, and roots trace those maps like explorers following rivers underground. Their growth bends toward the richest pockets, curving gently as though guided by a hand you cannot see. And minerals too: calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, nutrients essential for life. The soil holds them scattered in fragments and specks. Roots do not just stumble upon them. They taste the chemical signals. They release enzymes. They change the chemistry around them to draw the minerals closer, to make them available, to take what they need. You begin to understand. Roots are not passive straws, but active seekers. They listen, they taste, they reach, and in their reaching, they remember. A root that finds water may thicken, marking the spot, creating a stronger pathway. In dry times, the tree recalls these deeper roots and sends growth along them again, like remembering an old well in a forgotten landscape. This memory is not stored in a brain, but in the architecture of the body itself. The tree's past choices shape its future ones. You close your eyes and picture this network, an underground map, not drawn on paper, but written in living wood. Each line is a memory of rain, of drought, of hunger, of nourishment. The soil itself is part of this story. Soil is not just dirt. It is alive with microbes, bacteria, and fungi. These unseen companions help roots digest minerals, help them survive. In return, the tree shares sugars, food created above in the leaves. The roots become a place of exchange, a marketplace where tree and soil life trade what they can offer. This, too, is listening. The root listens to the soil listens to the root. A conversation begins, one that is never spoken, but always ongoing. As you sit quietly, you realize how different this world is from your own hurried pace. Above ground, movement is fast. Leaves flutter, birds dart, people rush. Below ground, everything slows. A root may grow only a few centimeters in a day, yet in that slow unfolding, it learns the shape of the earth. It gathers the memory of seasons. It becomes the silent historian of rain. You think of your own life. How often do you rush without listening? How often do you forget to sense the quiet signals of your own body, your own needs? The roots remind you that listening is as important as moving, that patience is not absence, but presence stretched longer, deeper. Roots are storytellers. Each scar, each branch, each turn in their growth tells of an obstacle met, a stone avoided, a path redirected. If you could unearth an old tree's root system, it would look like a diary written in lines and curves, a memoir of its search for sustenance. And though you cannot see them now, you can imagine. Beneath the ground, beneath your resting body, a network is alive, listening to every drop of rain, every shift in the soil. The tree above depends entirely on this hidden half. Without roots, leaves cannot drink. Without roots, flowers cannot bloom. Yet the tree trusts the roots to find what is needed. It lets them wander into the unknown darkness, sensing, tasting, remembering. You open your eyes and look at the forest again. You see the tall trunks, the reaching branches, the green crowns. But now you also feel the invisible mirror beneath, just as vast, just as complex, spreading underfoot like a shadow in reverse. And as you rest in this awareness, you begin to wonder, if roots listen so carefully, if they remember the places they've been, what else might they share, hidden in the dark, in silence, with one another? Beneath the hush of the forest floor, beyond the reach of your eyes, a deeper layer of connection unfolds. You have seen the roots stretching like fingers in the dark, searching for water, remembering rain. But roots are not alone down there. They are stitched into something larger, something vast and invisible, a network that binds the forest together. This network is made of fungi, thin filaments so small you could mistake them for threads of dust. They are called hyphae, and they weave through the soil in endless strands. Together, these strands form what scientists call mycelium, a living lacework beneath the ground, stretching farther than the roots themselves. It is not just a companion to the trees, it is a bridge, a messenger, an underground web of quiet conversation. Imagine for a moment lifting the forest floor like a veil and peering below. You would see not emptiness, not silence, but a glowing net of threads, delicate and countless. They weave around roots, touch them gently, slip into their tissues. The roots and fungi entwine until it becomes impossible to say where one ends and the other begins. This is no accident. It is a partnership millions of years old. Trees feed the fungi sugars, gifts created in the bright kitchens of leaves. In return, fungi give the trees minerals and water, gathered from distances roots alone could never reach. This trade is not charity, but cooperation, a living economy beneath the soil. But it does not stop with trade. These threads carry information. When one tree suffers, say a caterpillar gnaws its leaves, it can send a chemical signal through its roots into the fungal web. Nearby trees, connected through this lacework, receive the warning and begin to prepare, strengthening their defenses before the danger arrives. It is as if the forest whispers, "Beware, protect yourselves." You sit quietly with this thought. Trees that look separate above the ground are joined below it. They are not solitary beings, but members of a community, stitched together by threads finer than hair. What you see as stillness is in truth constant communication. Scientists sometimes call it the wood wide web, a forest's version of the internet. And in a way, it is true. Just as your own networks send messages through invisible lines, so do these fungi, carrying signals and nutrients across the soil. But unlike your machines, this web does not rush with noise or electricity. It moves with patience, with chemistry, with the slow rhythms of living things. Consider a young sapling standing in the shade of taller trees. On its own, it might wither, unable to reach enough sunlight. But through the fungal network, older trees can share resources, sending extra sugars or nitrogen across the threads. The young one survives not because it is strong, but because it is connected. There is a softness in this realization. Life here is not only about competition, as you may often imagine. It is also about care, about sharing, about survival as a group rather than as individuals. A forest is not a collection of trees, but a living community, woven together by unseen hands. You breathe in, slowly, letting the image of this underground web settle in your mind. You imagine your own body, your own connections. Just as trees are joined by threads of fungi, you too are joined to others by threads unseen. Friendships, families, shared breaths of air, common needs. You may feel separate, but beneath the surface, you are connected. The mycelium does more than connect. It expands the senses of the tree. Through fungi, roots can reach farther, feel deeper, taste more of the soil. The fungi act as extensions of the body, adding thousands of miles of touch that the tree alone could not create. The forest becomes more aware through this partnership, more resilient, more alive. You close your eyes and picture it. A silent orchestra beneath the ground, every thread a violin string, every tree a player, each sending signals, each receiving them, creating music you cannot hear, but which guides the life above. It is not chaos. It is harmony, slow and enduring. And this harmony carries memory. The soil holds the echoes of past seasons, of droughts and rains. The fungal network stores chemical traces that influence how the forest responds in the future. Just as you carry memory in your mind, the forest carries memory in its threads. You realize then that what you are learning is not only science, but a way of seeing. To walk in a forest is to walk inside a conversation. Every trunk, every root, every leaf is part of it. The stillness is not emptiness, but fullness stretched beyond your pace of hearing. The underground web is also fragile. It depends on balance, the right soils, the right conditions, the absence of too much disturbance. When forests are cut, when soils are broken, the network is severed, and the voices fall silent. You feel a quiet sadness, knowing how easily such harmony can be lost, and yet a hope, knowing it can also heal, given time and care. You sit longer, imagining yourself small enough to travel through this web. You follow a thread, thinner than silk, winding between grains of sand, brushing past root hairs, joining one root to another. You sense messages pulsing, nutrients passing, warnings carried, kindness shared. It is not the language of words, but the language of chemistry, the slow syllables of survival. And as you trace these threads, you begin to wonder, what is the forest without them? Could trees stand alone, cut off from this web? Perhaps they could survive for a time, but not thrive, not endure storms, not create such community. Connection, you realize, is not extra, it is essential. The thought wraps around you like a blanket. Just as you are not alone in this moment, neither is any tree. Each stands tall, but each belongs to the whole. The forest speaks most clearly when it speaks together, and you, listening here, are part of that chorus. Every breath you take, every step you make among the trunks, joins you into the rhythm of the web. And yet, as your thoughts grow stiller, you sense something more. The forest does not only whisper below the ground, it also speaks into the air, carrying signals you cannot see, turning wind into messenger. The air around you feels weightless, invisible, and yet it is never empty. You draw it in and release it without thinking, as if it were nothing more than a backdrop to your life. But the air is not a void. It is crowded with whispers. It is a flowing library of chemical letters, drifting words that you cannot see, but which shape the hidden communication of the living world. Imagine you are standing in a quiet forest. At first, everything seems still, almost silent. But in truth, this forest is alive with messages. A caterpillar lands on the leaf of an oak tree and begins to chew. To your eyes, it looks like nothing more than an insect's ordinary meal. Yet inside the leaf, a silent alarm has already been triggered. The torn tissue releases molecules into the air, faint and fleeting, but meaningful. They rise like invisible smoke, chemical words formed not by intention, but by the patient design of evolution. Nearby, other oak trees detect these drifting molecules. Their leaves, attuned like listening ears, read the message, "Danger is here." In response, those trees quietly adjust their chemistry. They might thicken their leaves, making them tougher to chew. They might produce bitter compounds, discouraging further bites. Without ever moving, without ever raising a voice, the trees have spoken. They have warned each other of the threat. You breathe in. Perhaps you have never noticed, but the air is thick with these conversations. Grass can warn grass. Flowers can whisper to their neighbors. Even fruits, when ripening, release subtle scents into the breeze, messages not of danger, but of readiness, of sweetness, of attraction. For every bird, bee, or wandering human, the air becomes a silent guidebook. Scientists call these airborne signals volatile organic compounds. The word volatile means they do not stay still. They drift, evaporate, vanish into movement. They are designed for travel. They spread outward, sometimes only a few centimeters, sometimes across fields. A single leaf, torn in the morning, can change the chemistry of a meadow by noon. And though the signals are invisible, they create an unseen thread of unity. Every tree, every blade of grass is connected by the air they share. Think of it as a language without sound. The forest speaks in molecules the way we speak in syllables. It is not a language with grammar or stories as we know them, but it is precise enough to matter. A locust tree sends one signal when grazed by deer and another when attacked by insects. The molecules differ, and so do the meanings. To those who can read, the difference is as sharp as the difference between fear and relief. The air around us, then, is not passive. It is alive with consequence. Every time you breathe, you draw into yourself more than oxygen. You inhale fragments of the world's ongoing conversation. A molecule released by a pine tree days ago might still float past you. A chemical signal from grass cut in a distant field might linger in the breeze. Even the smell of rain, that fresh, sharp scent, is itself a kind of message, a signal from soil bacteria that announces their presence after a storm. Pause and notice your own breath. It carries oxygen into your body, but it also carries stories, some so small that you could never name them, yet they belong to the living earth. You are not separate from this flow. With every exhale, you add to the air's collection, a trace of your presence, your chemistry, your story joins the mix. This communication is not only about plants. Animals, too, speak with the air. A frightened antelope releases stress signals through its skin. Other members of the herd smell it and prepare to flee. A moth in the night releases pheromones so delicate that another moth can sense them kilometers away. Even humans, though less sensitive, are participants. The scent of sweat, the aroma of cooking food, the faint perfumes we carry, all are messages drifting outward, part of the same atmospheric script. You begin to see how the air is not an emptiness, but a field of connection. It is a medium where lives touch. What happens to one leaf ripples outward, unnoticed by human eyes, but vital to to the hidden balance of survival. The air becomes a kind of memory, a shared awareness that prevents creatures from being entirely alone. There is something gentle in this realization. The next time you step outside, when you feel the wind brush your face, you can imagine it as a hand carrying countless unspoken words. The breeze is not just air in motion, it is a page being turned in a book that never ends. Every gust holds new writing, fresh with meaning, ready for those who know how to read. And yet, as you think of these messages, you realize they are fleeting. Molecules disperse, scents fade. The language of the air is written in water and carbon, in bonds that break almost as soon as they form. This impermanence is part of its beauty. The messages are not meant to last forever. They are meant to move, to vanish, to be carried onward. You breathe again. The air that fills you now was once in the lungs of another creature, in the leaves of a tree, in the deep swirl of the ocean. It has traveled across mountains, rivers, and time. Each inhalation is an inheritance. Each exhalation is a gift. You are part of the ongoing exchange, not separate, but woven into the great dialogue of existence. The thought lingers. If air carries messages, then breathing is a kind of listening. And if you listen carefully, you may begin to sense that silence itself is not silent. The world is always speaking, in ways beyond words, in signals beyond sound. You lie still, imagining the unseen threads. A tree exhales a warning. A flower releases its sweetness. A cloud drifts with its hidden cargo. You draw it in, and it becomes part of you. In this moment, you realize you have never truly taken a breath alone. And as you rest in that awareness, another question stirs, soft and quiet. If the air can carry messages, what of the water beneath your feet? What stories drift through rivers and roots? What currents of information flow in the hidden soil? You breathe one more time, sensing the invisible words dissolve into you. And as the air fades into stillness, you begin to wonder if the sky carries messages. What secret voices might be carried underground, waiting in the quiet dark of the earth? You sit in the quiet, eyes half closed, and you picture a tree in daylight. Its branches are spread like open arms, its leaves trembling in the breeze. Each leaf, you realize, is not just decoration. Each one is a factory, precise and tireless, working in silence. The sunlight falls across its green surface, and inside, an ancient alchemy begins. The leaf does not take the light as it is. It transforms it, carefully, slowly, into sugar. The name for this is photosynthesis. The word itself feels long, mechanical, but the reality is simple and almost tender. Light becomes energy. Air becomes food. Water becomes the carrier of it all. A leaf draws in carbon dioxide, pulls in water through its stem, and with the help of light, it stitches these invisible pieces into something solid. The product is sugar, glucose, simple, sweet, and alive. When you think of sugar, you may think of something on your tongue, but here, sugar is not a treat. It is language. It is currency. It is a promise of survival. The tree makes it for itself, but it also shares. The sugar flows downward, dissolving into sap, carried through tiny veins that run like highways through the trunk. It seeps into roots, stretches into fruits, climbs into seeds. Every cell waits, hungry for its share, and the sugar moves like a soft river that never stops. Imagine it. Rivers of sweetness inside wood. Invisible, but constant. If you pressed your ear to the trunk of a tree, if your hearing was sharp enough, perhaps you would catch the faint whisper of this movement, this flow of life turned into nourishment, a song without sound. This process does not belong to trees alone. Every green plant, every blade of grass beneath your feet, every fern in a shadowed corner is doing the same work. Sunlight is caught, woven, and turned into sugar. And with that sugar, life extends outward. The plants eat light, and in return, everything else eats plants. You breathe because of this process. You move because of this chain. Even when you eat food that is not plant, still, the origin is there. Grass eaten by cow, leaves eaten by goat, algae eaten by fish. Always, it begins with a leaf or something like a leaf, pulling sunlight into matter. The act itself is slow, almost prayerful. Chlorophyll, the green pigment inside leaves, is the quiet worker. It captures photons, packets of light, and transfers their energy into chemical bonds. You may never see it, but the moment is miraculous. It is as if the leaf catches the voice of the sun and translates it into words the body can understand. You can imagine standing among a forest, surrounded by billions of tiny kitchens, all working at once. Each one is turning sunlight into sugar, and that sugar into the possibility of movement, memory, thought. When you walk through the woods, you walk through the very origin of your own breath. It is humbling, almost dizzying. The sugar does not stop at feeding the plant alone. It is also a message to neighbors. In the underground networks of soil, roots reach out and touch the filaments of fungi. These fungi form bridges between trees, between grasses, between shrubs. Through these bridges, sugar is passed along like secret notes in a classroom. A large tree, full of light, may share with a shaded sapling nearby. A healthy root may give to one that is struggling. The sweetness is not selfish. It circulates, a quiet generosity written in carbon. Scientists call this the wood wide web, a hidden internet of roots and fungi, carrying not only sugar but warning signals, distress calls, hints of danger. A tree bitten by insects may send sugars mixed with alarm, telling neighbors to prepare their defenses. And so the sugar is not only food but communication, not only energy but song. If you lean deeper into the image, you can almost taste it. Sunlight, once intangible, now thickened into sweetness, sent through veins, shared with kin. In a way, the tree is singing. I am alive, I am feeding, I am connected. And you too are included in that song. You eat bread, rice, fruit, vegetables, all of them notes in this long symphony of sunlight turned tangible. Every meal is a record of photosynthesis. Consider the apple. Its crispness is sugar stored carefully, built by months of light, water, and air. When you bite into it, you are tasting the sun of summer days. Or think of honey, golden and smooth. Bees do not make it from nothing. They gather nectar, plant sugars concentrated from flowers, and refine it into sweetness. The honey you taste is sunlight passed through a bee's body. Even milk, creamy and cool, is only grass transformed again. Sugar eaten by cow, turned into nourishment for another. Everywhere, the thread leads back to photosynthesis. The tree does not hurry in its work. It stands in patience. Each day, as long as light falls, it gathers energy. The sugars accumulate, feed the body, push out new growth. Leaves unfurl, buds swell, branches extend. The song of sugar is growth made visible. And then, at night, the process rests. The sun is gone, so photosynthesis pauses. Yet the sugar keeps flowing. The tree breathes just as you do. It uses oxygen, burns its sugar slowly, and releases carbon dioxide again. A cycle continues. Sunlight in the day, breathing in the night. Always balanced, always exchanging. As you breathe now, you are part of that same rhythm. You inhale oxygen, a gift of the leaf. You exhale carbon dioxide, a gift back to the leaf. The partnership is constant, unbroken. When you lie in bed and feel the rise and fall of your chest, you might think of it as a continuation of the forest's work. You are not separate. You are part of the circle. Light into sugar, sugar into song, song into breath, breath into life. And still, the sugar carries another role. It stores memory. A tree can use it to survive a winter, tucked away in roots until spring calls. Seeds hold sugar inside their shells, waiting for the moment of germination. When you taste sweetness in a fruit, you taste not only energy, but time. Sunlight gathered across days and weeks, kept safe until needed. This storage, this patience, is also a kind of story. Plants keep records in sugar, and those records feed the next generation. Life writes itself in sweetness. You can imagine the earth itself humming with this constant flow. Across fields, forests, mountainsides, deserts, with their hardy shrubs, everywhere the same transformation is occurring. Trillions of tiny green cells pulling in sunlight, making sugar, releasing oxygen. A chorus of kitchens, each working alone, yet all together composing the great balance of life. You close your eyes and let yourself drift into the image. Sugar flowing like rivers beneath bark. Roots whispering sweetness into the soil. Bees carrying nectar back to their hive. Your own breath, soft and steady, returning what the leaf once gave. A network of giving without beginning or end. You are inside this story. Not apart from it, not looking from outside, but woven into the same cycle. Every cell in your body is built on the promise of photosynthesis. Every movement of your hand, every beat of your heart, every memory you hold, it all traces back to sugar made by light. And as the thought settles, you wonder, if sugar can be both food and song, both survival and communication, what else in the natural world carries two meanings at once? What other transformations, hidden in plain sight, might connect you more deeply to the mystery of being alive? You feel the sweetness in your breath, in your pulse, in the quiet, and softly you wonder, if sugar is a song written in light, what other hidden songs might flow through the air itself, waiting for you to listen more closely? You close your eyes, and the forest rises around you, not as a battlefront of noise, not as a clash of teeth or claws, but as a place where struggle happens in silence. Here, the trees do not charge, they do not swing weapons, they do not roar. Their strength is quieter, subtler, woven into molecules too small to see, yet powerful enough to shape the survival of entire ecosystems. A leaf in your hand looks so delicate, thin as paper, light as a whisper. But hidden within it is a library of chemicals, substances written across time, recipes passed from one generation to the next, each molecule carrying a memory of danger once faced. When an insect bites into its green surface, the leaf does not bleed in the way an animal would. Instead, it releases bitterness, a taste so sharp that the small jaws hesitate. It is not anger, but persuasion. A quiet whisper to the creature, "Go elsewhere. I will not be your easy meal." You breathe slowly, and you can almost taste that bitterness on your tongue. It is the quiet language of plants, spoken not through sound, but through chemistry. Resins drip from broken bark, sticky and golden in the fading light. To an animal, resin feels like glue. To a tree, it is armor. The moment a beetle drills into its trunk, the tree pushes out this viscous shield, sealing the wound before invaders can spread deeper. And yet, the resin does more than heal. It holds scents that repel attackers, aromas that, to you, might smell like pine or frankincense, but to insects are signals of warning. This space is already claimed. This body will resist you. Fragrance, you realize, is not just beauty, it is defense. The lavender that soothes you at night, the peppermint that clears your breath, the basil that sharpens a meal. All of these scents once began as survival strategies. Oils, woven into leaves and stems, to guard against hungry mouths, to confuse pests, to make the plant less appealing. And yet, in their attempt to protect themselves, plants offered you gifts, aromas that calm, heal, awaken, touching not only your senses, but also your spirit. You pause here. The world feels gentle, but under the surface is constant negotiation. Every plant is writing messages, sending invisible letters through the air. When one leaf is chewed, the plant releases signals, chemicals drifting on unseen breezes. Other leaves on the same tree receive the message, and they prepare themselves. Bitterness rises, oils grow stronger, the defenses awaken. But the conversation does not end there. Sometimes the message drifts farther. Neighboring trees, rooted meters away, catch the scent and listen. They too begin their preparations. A herd of grazers may enter the meadow, but the meadow already knows. It is not silence, but a quiet, invisible chorus of alarm. Plants whisper to each other, warning, adapting, not as individuals, but as a collective mind. You imagine this, a forest as a network of voices, no louder than molecules, but powerful enough to sway survival. A system where leaves, roots, bark, and blossoms all speak, all listen, all share the responsibility of enduring. Some defenses, though, are sharp enough to see. Thorns rise like miniature spears, spines harden like teeth, and hairs on leaves stand like tiny soldiers. They prick, they scratch, they make a meal inconvenient, and inconvenience itself can be enough to save a life. You touch a cactus spine in your mind's eye, and it reminds you, not all defenses must be loud, not all shields must be strong. Sometimes, survival is built on the smallest deterrents, repeated across millions of years, until an entire form of life is shaped. The rhythm of your breath slows, and the defenses of plants begin to feel familiar. A human cough, a sneeze, the heat of a fever. Are these not your own quiet defenses? Your body too whispers back when danger comes. It does not always shout with pain. Sometimes it simply changes the chemistry of your skin, or closes a wound with a clot, or shields your mind with drowsiness so you may rest. You and the tree are not so different. Your defenses and theirs are made of the same patience, the same persistence, the same will to endure without cruelty. You picture again that leaf, its bitterness unfolding like a soft shield. It does not hate the insect that bites it. It does not wish for war. It only asks for balance, to take just enough, to let it live, to share the world without consuming it whole. This patience becomes a lesson. In your own life, how often do you feel the urge to fight loudly when a quiet boundary might suffice? How often do you armor yourself in noise when chemistry, patience, or silence could be just as strong? The trees do not rush. Their defenses rise gently, layer by layer, a whisper strong enough to be heard by those who listen. And you, too, are learning that defenses can be soft without being weak. You walk deeper into the forest of thought. The air itself feels alive with signals. There is sweetness here, but also sharpness, as though each scent carries a memory. The minty coolness reminds you of ice. The spicy warmth of clove feels like fire. The citrus tang of orange feels like sunlight. Plants have woven the elements into their molecules, and now they release them as shields, offering you the same sensations that once kept predators away. Every defense, you realize, is also a story. A bitter almond carries the memory of toxins, poisons once designed to stop the hungry. A stinging nettle carries the memory of pain, tiny syringes injecting discomfort into skin. A pepper carries the memory of heat, capsaicin burning against tongues, convincing mammals to stay away, while birds, immune to the fire, spread the seeds farther. Even in defense, the story bends toward survival, toward balance, toward continuation. The forest exhales, and you exhale with it. Your heartbeat slows, steady, patient, as if your own body is joining in this language of quiet resistance. And yet, there is something deeper still. For while defenses whisper to attackers, they also whisper to allies. A flower's nectar is a lure, a soft contradiction to the bitterness of its leaves. It invites bees, moths, hummingbirds, promising sweetness while protecting its roots and stems. Balance again. Invitation and rejection. A soft boundary written in sugar and scent. Even in defense, plants are not isolated. They are in conversation. They are shaping relationships. They are weaving themselves into the choices of every creature that brushes past them. You lie quietly in this realization. The forest is not a silent witness. It is a participant. Its whispers are everywhere, not shouts of defiance, but murmurs of endurance. And in hearing them, you are reminded that survival need not be violent. It can be slow, chemical, invisible, patient. Your eyelids grow heavy. The resin's scent lingers in your imagination, golden and protective. The oils rise like invisible shields, comforting in their fragrance. The bitterness, sharp on your tongue, softens into wisdom. Boundaries are not always walls. They can be whispers. They can be invisible fences that teach others how to move with care. And as you drift further into this calm, you begin to sense that these whispers do more than defend. They teach, they guide, they ripple outward into the soil, the air, the web of life. The defenses of one tree can echo through the forest, shaping the growth of others, shaping the choices of animals, shaping the very rhythm of ecosystems. You wonder, softly, if these defenses are only barriers or if they are also bridges. Bridges into something deeper, something beneath the surface. You wonder, as your breath grows slower, whether the roots themselves are part of this hidden conversation. You sit within the hush of an imagined forest, and though no wind stirs, you feel a quiet movement inside the trees around you. Their tall bodies rise like patient guardians of time, and in their stillness, you sense something hidden. Beneath bark and sap, beneath the moss that clings to their roots, lies a story written without letters. It is a story of rings, circles pressed one after another, soft records of every season that has passed. A tree grows by layers. Each year, when spring arrives, it stretches upward and outward, weaving new tissue beneath its bark. The cells are generous in the warmth and moisture of the early season, wide and open, allowing water to flow. Later, as summer turns to autumn and rains withdraw, the cells become tighter, narrower, denser. By winter's stillness, growth pauses, waiting for light to return. Then, when the cycle begins again, another band forms, wrapping the trunk like a secret memory added to a diary no hand has ever written. These rings are not just marks of age, they are portraits of circumstance. A wet year leaves broad, pale bands, a feast of rain preserved in wood. A drought etches thin, dark rings, testimony of hardship. Even a wildfire's heat leaves scars that heal but never vanish. Trees keep everything. They remember not only time itself, but the quality of that time, the abundance and the struggle, the silence and the storm. When scientists take a slice of trunk, they read these rings as you might read lines of poetry. Dendrochronology, the science of tree rings, has taught us that forests hold calendars within them more precise than many human records. From them, we learn about ancient droughts that toppled civilizations, volcanic eruptions that dimmed skies, floods that carved valleys. Some trees alive today carry memories more than 4,000 years old, their wooden rings stretching back into centuries before history was ever written. To lie beneath such a tree, you might imagine resting against a vast archive, a library whose books are silent but true. Each ring is a year you could walk across, a season you could touch. A child of rain, a summer of fire, a winter of hunger, layer upon layer, preserved in patient circles. And then the thought arises, if trees remember in wood, how do you remember? What rings have been pressed within you? Your memories do not form in bark or sapwood, but in a shifting sea of connections inside your brain. Neurons weave pathways, strengthen bonds, light up in patterns of experience. Just as a tree widens with each spring, your own self expands with each encounter, each joy, each sorrow. You are not made of rings, yet you are no less layered. Childhood, adolescence, moments of wonder, moments of pain. These are your own concentric circles, invisible but real. But unlike trees, your memories are not fixed. They breathe, they blur, they change. A tree cannot rewrite its drought year. It will always remain narrow in that band. But you can reinterpret yours. Your mind, with its plasticity, allows you to hold the past in new light. Yesterday's hardship may become tomorrow's strength. The same memory can shrink or expand depending on how you live with it. In this, you are both more fragile and more free than the trees. Their records are permanent. Yours are fluid, soft, shifting with time's current. Yet the parallel lingers. You both carry seasons. You both hold drought and abundance. And you both endure by layering the new atop the old. Sometimes, though, you may feel the weight of those invisible rings pressing in. Perhaps you recall a year when light felt scarce, when joy seemed thin, when you closed yourself off like a tree in winter. Yet even then, growth did not stop. Beneath the surface, you were preparing. You were storing strength, biding time for a new season to return. The forest reminds you that nothing grows in constant abundance. Life needs pauses, slowdowns, even hardships. The narrow rings are as vital as the broad ones. Together, they make the trunk stable, strong, unshakable by storms. Without variation, without rhythm, the tree would not stand. Your life, too, is shaped by variation. The lean years and the abundant years, the joys that widened you, the trials that tightened you. All are necessary, all are part of your pattern. You breathe with this thought, letting it settle. And as your breath slows, you imagine your chest rising and falling like seasons themselves. Each inhale, a spring of expansion. Each exhale, a winter of release. You are a tree of memory, your rings invisible but undeniable, expanding quietly with every passing day. The forest around you seems to lean closer, as if listening. The air feels alive with continuity, with the sense that nothing is wasted, that even silence is preserved. You recall that when two trees grow side by side, their rings echo each other, both recording the same drought, the same storm. Entire forests can hold collective memory, just as communities of people share events that shape them together. Think of your own life as part of such a forest. You do not stand alone. The rings inside you resonate with those of others, overlapping, reflecting, weaving a greater pattern than you could hold alone. When you remember, you are not only recalling your own seasons, but participating in a larger memory of time. Perhaps that is why we feel comfort in trees. They remind us that to endure is natural, that to carry memory is not a burden, but a testament. To be layered is to be alive. And so, as you lie with this thought, you begin to wonder what the next ring will hold, not in anxious anticipation, but with a quiet trust. For just as the tree cannot know the weather of next year, neither can you. Yet both of you will respond, and both of you will grow. Your body drifts towards stillness, but your mind lingers on this gentle mystery, the memory of trees, the memory of people, the slow dance of seasons that shapes both wood and spirit. And as the thought settles, your attention begins to drift outward again, beyond forests and rings, towards something more intangible still. If wood can hold memory, if neurons can preserve seasons of thought, then what about the sky itself? Does the atmosphere, too, carry records of time? Does the air you breathe tonight remember the winds of centuries past, the breaths of countless lives before yours? The question stirs softly, like a breeze touching the branches. It does not demand an answer. It only invites you forward, into the next unfolding wonder. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the silence around you is not empty. It is alive. The air that moves gently into your lungs is not simply air, it is a story billions of years in the making. Each breath you take carries the whisper of forests, those vast, green cathedrals of life that breathe in their own slow rhythm, a rhythm you now lean into. Forests are not merely collections of trees. They are breathing bodies, stretching roots deep into the earth and lifting branches into the light. Like your chest rising and falling, they inhale and exhale. When they take in carbon dioxide, they are drinking the breath you release. When they exhale oxygen, they are offering you the breath you need. There is no separation. Your body and the forest are woven into the same unseen cycle, two sides of one breath. You picture a vast forest, perhaps the Amazon, stretching beyond the horizon. The canopy forms a living ceiling, a quilt of leaves moving gently with the wind. Beneath it, the soil holds secrets, roots entangled like veins beneath skin. Each tree here is part of a greater organism, a living web. Through photosynthesis, they gather sunlight, turning light into food, breath into life. The green pigment chlorophyll captures photons, small sparks of the sun's fire, and transforms them into energy. This energy becomes sugars, the quiet meal that fuels growth, that feeds leaves, trunks, roots, and even the countless creatures living among them. You breathe again. Slowly. Your inhale is mirrored by their exhale, though stretched across hours and days. The forest breath is slower than yours, a patient rhythm. If your breath is a wave rolling upon the shore, theirs is the tide, so wide, so steady, it feels eternal. Scientists call forests the lungs of the planet, but they are more than lungs. They are guardians of balance, storing carbon, preventing the sky from filling too quickly with greenhouse gases. They hold back heat. They cradle rainfall. Each tree is like a pillar, holding up the fragile climate you depend upon. Yet when you stand within a forest, none of this feels mechanical or abstract. It feels alive. It feels like presence. Imagine the leaves overhead. They are not passive. They open pores, tiny stomata, smaller than dust. Through these, the tree draws in carbon dioxide and breathes out oxygen. Every pore is a mouth. Every mouth is exhaling into your inhale. You breathe them in, and in that quiet act, you are not only keeping yourself alive, you are carrying the forest inside you. The forest does not breathe alone. Within its shadows, mosses, fungi, ferns, and flowers join the rhythm. Even the soil itself is alive with breath. Billions of microbes live beneath the surface, exhaling carbon dioxide as they digest, a quiet choir of microscopic lungs. Animals breathe too, the jaguar deep in the thicket, the monkey among the branches, the insect resting on a leaf. Their breath mingles with yours, cycling endlessly. The forest breath is not a singular motion. It is a conversation, a chorus, and within that chorus there is another kind of language, the language of trees speaking to each other. Beneath the ground, fungi weave through soil, forming what scientists call the mycorrhizal network. Through it, trees share nutrients, send warnings, even lend strength to weaker neighbors. When one tree is thirsty, another may send water. When insects attack, chemical messages ripple underground like quiet alarm bells. It is as though the forest itself is one breathing mind, one vast body inhaling and exhaling across centuries. You inhale again. This time, you notice the weight of your own chest, the expansion of your ribs. You notice how the air feels cooler when it enters and warmer when it leaves. This difference is subtle but profound. The forest feels this too. Your exhale carries carbon dioxide, a gift the leaves will use. What you release is food for them. What they release is life for you. Back and forth, across invisible threads, you are joined. It is a humbling thought that the very act of breathing is never yours alone. Even as you lie still, even as you close your eyes, you are not isolated. You are part of a breathing system that began long before your birth and will continue long after. The scale of it stretches beyond forests. Oceans, too, breathe in their own way. Tiny plankton floating near the surface capture sunlight just as trees do, exhaling oxygen into the world. In fact, more than half of the oxygen you breathe comes not from forests, but from these drifting, fragile beings in the sea. Yet forests remain the more visible, tangible reminder, the ones you can walk through, touch, and hear. Still, forests are fragile. Chainsaws, fires, and bulldozers cut into their rhythm. When trees fall, when soil burns, the carbon they have stored is released back into the sky. The breath of the forest then becomes a sigh of loss, an exhale too heavy for the world to carry. And yet, even in grief, forests show resilience. Saplings rise where giants fall. Seeds carried by birds or wind land in the soil and begin again. The breath continues, slower, altered, but still alive. You imagine now your own body as a forest. Your lungs are trees, branching bronchi into smaller bronchioles until at last they end in alveoli, tiny sacs like clusters of leaves. Within them, oxygen crosses into blood. Carbon dioxide flows out. Your chest is a landscape. Your breath is a forest rhythm scaled down to fit within skin. You are not only connected to forests, you are a mirror of them. This realization softens you. You feel your body in harmony with the green lungs of Earth. You notice how each inhale calms the noise in your thoughts. Breathing is not a task to complete. It is a bridge between worlds, inner and outer, human and forest, self and planet. Slowly, you begin to imagine the passage of time, not in minutes, but in breaths. Forests breathe in seasons. They inhale more deeply in summer, exhale softly in winter. Leaves fall, decay, return their nutrients to soil, and the rhythm begins again. You too breathe in cycles, sometimes shallow with worry, sometimes deep with peace, yet always returning, always circling back. As you drift further into this thought, you begin to sense how breath connects to memory, how forests hold history in their rings. Each circle inside a trunk marks a year of survival, of droughts endured, of storms weathered. The forest breath is not only about the present, it is about memory carried forward, growth written into wood, resilience shaped by time. And in this recognition, you pause. Your breath slows even more. It feels as though you are part of something vast and unhurried, something that does not rush to endings. You wonder, if forests breathe, and you breathe, and oceans breathe, then what is the breath of the planet itself? Is there a larger inhale, a planetary exhale that you have not yet learned to feel? The thought lingers like mist at the edge of dawn, soft and unresolved, carrying you toward the next mystery waiting just beyond the trees. You sit quietly, as if in a forest where no wind stirs, and yet you feel the air alive with something unseen. Growth does not announce itself with thunder, nor with sudden flashes of light. It is not impatient, nor hurried. It is the quiet work of time, steady and unyielding. The tree before you is not performing for applause, and yet it becomes magnificent. Its trunk thickens in rings you cannot see forming. Its branches extend year by year, and its roots sink into hidden soil with a strength that is both silent and eternal. You realize that growth is not only what you see, it is also what is becoming beneath the surface. If you close your eyes, you may almost hear it, not in sound as you know it, but in rhythm. Each leaf unfurls like a whispered note. Each tendril of root reaches downward like a bass line, resonating in the dark. The tree does not strain to create music, and yet in its stillness, it conducts an orchestra of becoming. What you call silence is in truth a layered symphony, unfolding at a scale too slow for human ears. Inside the tree, cells divide with remarkable order. Each carries the instructions written in spiraled strands of DNA, repeating a song older than memory. Lignin stiffens walls, xylem carries water upward, phloem delivers sugars downward, and still the tree says nothing. Yet when you breathe in, you inhale the product of its quiet labor. Oxygen, life-giving, invisible. The tree grows without needing to declare that it grows. And so do you. Your body, too, is engaged in a similar silence. Skin renews. Blood cells are born and die. Neurons extend filaments like unseen roots. Even now, in the stillness of your listening, your cells continue their work. You are a forest of processes, happening whether or not you command them. Growth, you realize, is not a task to complete, but a state of being. It is written into life itself. Think of the seed, small, unremarkable, often overlooked. Within it lies the blueprint of an oak, a pine, a banyan, stretching centuries into the future. But for now, it is simply still, waiting. When water softens its shell, enzymes awaken, and a rootlet pierces into soil. It does not yet know the sky, but it trusts the direction of its growth. You imagine yourself as that seed, carrying possibilities within, not rushing to reveal them all at once. The earth cradles the seed, providing darkness, not light, as its first companion. You notice how growth begins not with what is seen, but with what is hidden. A root takes hold before a stem rises. Security before reach, foundations before height. This too is a pattern, one that repeats in your own life. You cannot rise without anchoring. You cannot stretch outward without first holding inward. The tree teaches this without words. Seasons pass, and growth wears many forms. In spring, a surge of green. In summer, the slow work of thickening. In autumn, a graceful surrender. In winter, the appearance of stillness that is not stillness at all. Beneath the bark, cells prepare, storing energy, readying themselves for the return of warmth. The symphony pauses, but the music is not over. It is simply shifting movements. You realize the same is true for yourself. Times of action, times of rest, times when nothing seems to happen, but everything is quietly preparing. You begin to wonder what it would mean to live like the tree, to grow without hurry, to allow each season its work, to understand that silence is not emptiness, but a field where music is written too slowly for the impatient ear. The forest deepens your thought. You picture countless trees together, each contributing its voice. Mycorrhizal networks, fungal threads beneath the soil, connect roots, allowing trees to share nutrients, warnings, even strength. A sapling shaded from light receives sugar from its elders. A tree attacked by pests sends chemical messages underground, calling its neighbors to readiness. It is not only a symphony of one tree, but of many. Growth is both solitary and shared. And again, you turn inward. Your growth, too, does not belong only to you. Every kindness exchanged, every idea shared, every word spoken extends your branches into the lives of others. You are part of a network invisible but strong, woven not by roots and fungi, but by memory, empathy, and care. Still, growth is not always gentle. Sometimes it cracks stone. A seed can split concrete, a root can lift pavement. What seems fragile is in fact unyielding when it follows the persistence of time. So too within you, growth may mean breaking patterns, stretching beyond what seems possible. The symphony of patience sometimes carries notes of force, of resilience, of unstoppable continuation. In the laboratory of the mind, scientists observe how cells divide, how organisms increase in complexity, how energy is stored and released. But when you stand before the tree, you sense something beyond the measure of data. Growth is both biology and poetry, both mechanism and metaphor. Its silence is a teacher, reminding you that not all progress is visible and not all music is heard. You recall the feeling of watching clouds. They appear still, yet minutes later, you see they have shifted. The same with the tree, the same with yourself. What is steady in one moment becomes transformed in another. Growth disguises itself as stillness until the day it reveals its accumulation. You may not notice the tree adding rings, but one day you notice shade where once there was none. You may not notice your own becoming, but one day you notice strength where once there was doubt. The forest continues to breathe, and you with it. Every inhale you take is a note in the shared symphony. The trees exhale what you need, and you exhale what they need. Together you create a rhythm, unspoken, unplanned, but real. Growth is not only what happens within, but also the harmony formed between. You think of your own seasons, times when you expanded, times when you rested, times when you released what you no longer needed. Perhaps you feared the pauses, the winters of your life, thinking they were emptiness. But now, as you listen to the silent symphony, you understand that pauses are not the end of music. They are part of the rhythm that gives meaning to the notes. There is no rush, there is only unfolding. You, like the tree, are reaching without strain, becoming without needing to announce. Each day adds a ring, each experience another branch, sometimes invisible, sometimes clear, but always there. And as you rest in this realization, you begin to hear the silence differently. Not absence, but fullness. Not stillness, but slow music. The symphony of growth continues, whether you notice or not. And tonight, in this quiet moment, you notice. You are both listener and instrument. You close your eyes, and the forest fades into a softer space. The tree becomes less distinct, and instead you feel the rhythm of growth within yourself. Your breath, your heartbeat, your thoughts, each part of a score written across time. You drift into this symphony as though it were a cradle, carrying you not forward in haste, but deeper into presence. Yet somewhere in this silence, you sense another movement waiting. Growth may be slow, but it always leads to something beyond itself. Trees do not only grow, they connect sky to soil, past to future, life to life. You wonder then what larger pattern your own growth belongs to. What symphony is your small melody a part of? You pause with the question, knowing the music has not ended. You feel its continuation, stretching beyond what you can hear now, toward a horizon you have not yet seen. The tree teaches you that growth is never solitary, that it always leads into something greater. And as you rest in this quiet wonder, you begin to feel another question rise. If growth is a symphony, then what vastness does it play within? You walk deeper into the forest, and though the air is still, you feel a kind of listening around you. Every tree, every root, every leaf seems to lean in, as if aware of your footsteps. You pause, noticing the silence between bird calls, and realize it is not silence at all. It is something else, a hidden exchange, a soft murmur in a language you have not yet learned. Scientists tell us that forests speak in pulses, in threads of chemical signals and electrical sparks beneath the soil. Through networks of fungi, roots are joined. Through that invisible lace, nutrients and warnings are shared. If one tree senses drought, it sends a chemical signal, and nearby trees close their pores, preserving water. If a sapling is shaded and starving, older trees sometimes pass sugars to keep it alive. This is not just survival, it is a quiet generosity. It is a form of remembering that one tree alone could never hold. You stand here now, listening, though your ears cannot hear the slow rhythm of sap, the careful timing of root to root. But if you imagine yourself shrinking down, smaller than a seed, slipping beneath the forest floor, you would see highways glowing with life, carbon flowing like a river, messages traveling like whispers in the dark. You would see that the forest is not separate trees, but one long breath stretched across thousands of trunks. This is why you feel calmer among trees. Your nervous system responds to their steadiness, to their slowness. They live at a pace that steadies the heart. Every breath you take is answered by their leaves, trading oxygen for the carbon you release. You have always been part of this exchange, though you may have forgotten. Notice the way their whispers reach you, not in words, but in rhythm. A breeze brushes across your skin, carrying the scent of resin, damp soil, and moss. These scents are not accidents, they are messages too. Volatile compounds drift into the air, some calling insects, some warning neighbors of pests, some signaling the time to bloom. The air you breathe now is a chorus of signals, written by bark and leaf. You inhale them without effort. They settle into you, and your body understands something your mind cannot name. The forest is not asking you to translate. It is asking you to notice. To notice how roots and fungi braid into one body, how trees bend to light, how decay feeds growth. Even in death, a fallen trunk is not silent. Beetles hollow it, fungi feather it white, moss pulls it into softness. Slowly, it becomes soil again, ready to cradle another seed. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing is alone. Think of your own life. How many times have you stood feeling alone when beneath the surface there were roots reaching toward you, unseen but present? We too are connected by invisible threads of memory, of care, of kindness. Every word you have spoken, every gesture of comfort or silence of listening is part of someone else's root system. What you pass along may be remembered long after you have forgotten. Trees whisper patience. They stretch upward, not in rush, but in trust, knowing the light will arrive. Their roots do not demand instant results. They wait, finding nourishment inch by inch. In their company, you are invited to slow down, to accept the pace of things that last. Your own growth, too, can be slow, and still it can be certain. Scientists measuring growth rings can read centuries in a trunk, each line a memory of drought, storm, or abundance. In a single tree, history is held in circles. You too carry rings, layers of seasons, years of change, stories etched into the body of your life. When you touch the bark, you are touching a memory that has outlived generations. And still, the tree grows, adding new rings, stretching toward tomorrow. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel how the forest surrounds you. The hush is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the sound of 1,000 conversations at once, all happening so slowly that your mind cannot grasp them, but your body can feel them. This is why your breath slows, why your shoulders ease. You are sinking to the forest's clock, a clock that does not hurry. Consider how easily you miss this in daily life. You measure time in minutes and deadlines, in notifications and alarms. Trees measure it in light and dark, in the tilt of seasons. They have no use for clocks, and yet they are never late. Their rhythm is the rhythm of the planet itself. To be among them is to remember that you are not separate from that rhythm. You belong to it, always have. When you touch a trunk, your hand rests against a living library. Within its cells are sugars pulled from sunlight, minerals drawn from stone, water lifted against gravity. All of this becomes wood, leaf, fruit, and you, without effort, benefit, shade in summer, warmth in winter, breath in every moment. Trees have always been your companions, your protectors, your silent teachers. You live because they live, and still they ask nothing but recognition, nothing but presence, nothing but that you too learn to listen more slowly. So you try. You stand here longer than you meant to. You let the breeze shift, carrying new scents, new signals. You let the shadows rearrange. You let the ground press steady beneath your feet. Each moment grows quieter, but also more alive. You are listening now, not only with your ears, but with your breath, your skin, your very being. You realize the whisper is not just from tree to tree. It is an invitation for you to belong, to remember, to carry the forest inside you, even when you leave. And as you close your eyes, the whispers blur into something softer still, something that follows you into the night, into the dreams where voices are not bound by language. You wonder, as the forest grows darker, what else might be speaking to you in silence? Perhaps not only trees, perhaps the stars as well.